Our aspiration for a homeland is as old as the Israelites who wandered in the desert. Long before the term Zionism was coined, it was a dream we nurtured in our collective memory throughout the diaspora. The modern Zionist movement was born in the 19th century. Incited by the Dreyfus Affair, Theodor Herzl and his contemporaries formed the first Zionist Congress. They expressed the need for a Jewish state, and the religious idea of a homeland, Zion, evolved into a political one. This was Zionism 1.0, the aspirational stage in the quest for a Jewish homeland. Jews gradually migrated to the region, first under Ottoman rule and then later under the British Mandate. Following World War II and the Holocaust, what had already been agreed upon became eminently clear. It was time for the Jews to have their own state. And in 1948, David Ben-Gurion, with the backing of the United Nations, declared Israel's independence. This marked the start of Zionism 2.0, building a home for the dispersed Jewish people. Israel fought for its life, absorbed massive waves of immigrants, many of whom came as refugees. Israel endured wars, overcame an economic crisis, weathered social unrest, and signed difficult but crucial peace treaties. The birth of modern Israel inspired Jews all around the world, and Israel quickly became a unifying story, receiving invaluable support from diaspora Jewry. Today, it has become a regional power, an economic success, a cultural hub, a thriving Jewish state. Zionism 2.0 was a period during which many Israelis believed that all Jews should make Aliyah, and that Jewish life outside of Israel would eventually disappear. But diaspora Jewry continued to thrive and evolve. And at the turn of the 21st century, we have surpassed all expectations. For the first time in Jewish history, there is both a strong Jewish homeland and a vibrant Jewish diaspora. This signals the beginning of a new era, the era of Zionism 3.0. Zionism 3.0 demands that we ask ourselves a new set of questions. What does it mean to be a Zionist today? Are we still one people, or will the two populations grow further apart? How will these centers of Jewish life relate to each other? Z3 insists that we adopt a new paradigm, one that embraces a strong partnership between the centers of Jewish life. It requires all backgrounds and perspectives to join in conversation. Z3 is about transcending our differences, strengthening our sense of peoplehood, and embracing our shared destiny together. This is Zionism 3.0, Z3. Come join the conversation.
Please welcome to the stage Zack Bodner, President and CEO of the Oshman Family JCC.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Welcome here. Welcome to Z3 2021, our Futures Workshop. Great to yeah. It's great to be back in person today, right? It's been a while. I know we will have more people coming in this morning. It's rare to start a Jewish event on time. I know some of you are like, what's going on? I haven't seen this before. But we have hundreds of people also joining us virtually. So we wanted to be respectful of their time. So thank you for being with us in the audience. Thank you for being with us on your computer. Hopefully you've gotten a nice cappuccino this morning here or at home. I don't even care if you're wearing pants at home. I'm just glad you're here and you're with us today. So welcome, welcome. A number of thank yous I want to offer before we dive into today's content, because this event would not have been possible but for the work of hundreds of people. As you all know, these events take a lot of work to come off. And first of all, the team, the staff here has been remarkable. I want to just say, first of all, yes, to starting with Rabbi Amitai Freeman, our Z3 director. Amitai, thanks for everything. You have been remarkable. This is his brainchild. Today's event, not like a conference you've ever seen before, all came from inside that crazy kepi of his, that head of his. So thank you, Amitai, for all your hard work. And the work that, you had Maya, Yaniv, you had Ronit Jacobs, everybody from the ICC. Thank you for all your hard work today as well. For Seth and Michelle and the whole development team here at the JCC, Nathaniel and the marketing team. It's just been an incredible effort from so many people. Brandy and Julio on our AV and events team. You're seeing all this because they've done a remarkable job. And of course, Kate Taffel and our event production team. Thank you, Kate, up there in the booth with your whole chevra up there. And of course, to Sally Flinchbaugh, the Executive Vice President and COO here. Nothing happens without her. So thank you, Sally, for your partnership and everything you do, really. Look, there's also a lot of partners, a lot of sponsors, a lot of donors who made this event possible. You've been with us since the beginning, since we've been doing this from 2015. And I can't possibly thank you all, but there are a few people who deserve a huge hug, virtual or otherwise. I want to thank Eli and Jeanette Reinhardt for all your support. Yeah, I want to thank the Sauls. I want to thank Moses Lipitsky. I want to thank Jeff Farber and the Correct Foundation. I want to thank Gary and Kathy Rayant. I want to thank the Rodans, Kobe and Ricky Dayan for all of their support over the years. The Jim Joseph Foundation, the Paul Singer Foundation, the Israeli government. I know we have Shlomi here from the Israeli government. Thank you for all your help over the years. It's just been an incredible effort across all sorts of environments. And the other thing I want to mention is that we have representation from 15 JCCs across the continent, across America, including Canada here. I have 30 colleagues who have dragged themselves here today. Stand up, guys. If you're in the audience, stand up so people can see you. Representing JCCs from all over the country and Canada. Thank you guys for being here and in our own backyard. They are the ones who are going to take this Z3 project and take it all the way across the country and make sure it blows up. Finally, to our speakers. We have folks that have flown in from all over the country, including people who just arrived from Israel a couple of hours ago. They are putting up with having to go back and quarantine afterwards, but they realize how important it is to be here and how much they wanted to partner with us. So thank you to all of our speakers. So look, we have a great program planned for you today. I don't even know what's going to happen, which is a little concerning. I like to have everything scripted out, but it's going to be a bit of a crapshoot. We're going to have a lot of fun. But thank you for those of you who are joining us for the very first time. If this is your first Z3 experience, welcome to the family. Welcome to the mishpacha. Welcome to the movement. You're joining a group of like-minded individuals. All of us who are part of this, from the left to the right, from the Orthodox to the secular, Israeli, Russian, American, and everyone in between, we're here because we care about the Jewish people. We care about the future of Jewish people, the future of Israel diaspora relations. And like you, we're also concerned because these differences that we have, the areas where we disagree, they're shaping in so many ways how people define their relationship with each other, which is not the way it should be. These areas of disagreement, which are not many, but they're deep, these areas of disagreement are creating a wedge between us instead of creating an opportunity for engagement. And that's what the Jewish people have always been about. We've used our differences of opinion to argue, to debate, to discuss, to engage with each other, not to back off into our own corners with our polarization and our partisanship. Think about the tradition of the Talmud. The tradition of the Talmud was taking different opinions and engaging with each other, vociferously, animatedly. That's what we are trying to do here at Z3. We are the tip of the spear, trying to bring that ethos back to this next generation. We are writing tomorrow's Talmud. All of you, you're engaged in the holiest task of the Jewish people of this generation. We are writing the Talmud of the 21st century. It's bringing together the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud of the future. We are teaching our people how to engage despite our differences. This is about unity, not uniformity. This is about engaging as equal partners. This is about a diversity of voices. We are coming together because we realize we live in this historic moment. We are blessed to be the ones living in a time that has never before been in the history of the Jewish people, where there's both a strong Jewish homeland and a strong Jewish diaspora here in North America. It's never been this way before. There's been one or the other, but today we're living in this moment where both are strong centers contributing to Jewish life and the Jewish future, and we need to find a way to re-engage with each other because there's friction right now. There's scratchiness. We know this, but we also know there's a way beyond that. That's what we're here to do today. And we do this conference every year during Hanukkah. Why? Because the Hanukkah story, the Hanukkah celebration, yes, it's about Jewish survival, but it's also about embracing Jewish pluralism. It's about recognizing that we need to engage and be Jewish and do Jewish in a variety of ways. That's what we think of with the Hanukkah story. But despite that, we're still celebrating Hanukkah differently. You know that here in the diaspora, we have a dreidel that says, Nes Gadol Haya Sham. A great miracle happened there. And yet in Israel, their dreidel says, Nes Gadol Haya Po. a great miracle happened here. If that doesn't epitomize the difference between us, I don't know what does. But that's why the symbol of the Z3 project, the symbol of what we're doing, is a new dreidel. We created a new dreidel, a 5-sided dreidel. Nes Gadol Haya Sham and Po, recognizing that great miracles are indeed happening here and there. You all have a couple of them in your bags. Feel free to open them up. Feel free to try to play with them. Good luck. It's a symbol, right? But listen, this is why we're here today. We're here today to try to bridge these gaps, to bring us back together. We're here today to have fun, to experiment, to engage. All of you are going to be involved in some sort of project that we've never seen before, this simulation, this game. We're here to prepare for, God forbid, that the big one, the big earthquake, that scenario that we hope never happens, that thing that truly divides Israel and diaspora Jewry. Because we're seeing foreshocks. You know this term foreshocks? All of us in Northern California, we know aftershocks, the small tremors that happen after the big one. Well, foreshocks are the small tremors that happen before the big one. And we're seeing them. All of us here are seeing them in our own communities. Many of our speakers who are here today have written about this. Many of you are witnessing this on your own college campuses or high school campuses, in our own backyards with the rise of anti-Semitism. I'm going to tell you one story of a foreshock that we've personally witnessed, that I've seen. Many of you who know me, you know I have 3 wonderful kids. My oldest daughter, Talia, is a senior in high school. She's been a part of many of these Jewish youth groups over the years, part of these Jewish leadership programs. She was a part of a Jewish leadership program this past year, where they brought these kids together. And these are like budding Jewish leaders, right? This is not just a normal teen program. This is for Jewish leaders. And they brought them together and they gave them a list of 13 Jewish attributes or characteristics, 13 Jewish values. Think of like Shabbat and Jewish holidays and culture and Jewish food and Israel and Tikkun Olam. They gave us them this list of 13 attributes. And then they gave them a drawing of concentric circles. So they said, place them in the concentric circles, the ones that are most important to you in the center, and the ones that are less important to you in the more outer rings of the concentric circles. But they said only place 9 of them. As a group, what defines your Jewish identity? And my daughter Talia was shocked to see how few of these kids placed Israel in any of the centers. Any of them. By the way, these aren't just regular teens. This isn't a group of just Jewish teens. These are Jewish teen leaders of the future. And so few of them placed Israel in any of the concentric circles. She spent hours trying to convince them that Israel was more important than bagels and lox for Jewish identity. Folks, that's a foreshock in my mind. That's an example of what the future could hold if we don't collectively try and change the course. And that's what we're here to do today with this Futures Workshop, with this simulation. Now, before we dive in, I want to draw your attention back to the screen because we have a welcome from the State of Israel, a welcome from the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, a welcome from Nachman Shai. Please.
Dear friends, the Jewish people are bound by shared history, tradition, and culture. Perhaps most importantly, it's our shared desire to make the world a better place that inspires our modern covenant. Few movements today embody this notion as fully as Zionism 3.0. A 21st century Jewish idea born in Palo Alto, Z3 has ignited a new conversation about who we are as people today. As such, it's a pleasure to join all of you, friends and colleagues, for the Z3 2021 conference. While I cannot be with you in Palo Alto, I wish I were, I send my warmest blessings from here in Jerusalem. Together, let us foster a more confident and pluralistic Jewish future. תודה רבה, וחנוכה שמח לכולכם מירושלים.
Good morning. What a lovely message from the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Nachman Shai. It's really great and heartwarming to see and to know that we have such great partners in Israel who are working so hard to maintain this relationship. It's such an important relationship between diaspora Jewry and Israel. For those who don't know me, my name is Amitai Freeman, and I'm the director of the Z3 project. And it's exciting and a little nerve-wracking to be here with all of you today, safely in person. And for those watching at home, we hope that you can join us soon on this campus. COVID has made it a tough year with many challenges, and we're still facing and dealing with so many of them. But with that, there was an amazing move to make a lot of virtual and online programming. And through that, Z3 grew exponentially. Our plan in 2019, when we were looking forward to 2020, was to have 5 additional Z3s across the country. That was our plan. We ended up having 60 events in 30 communities around the world, from Buenos Aires to Seattle, from Emek Hefer to where else did we have it? Emek Hefer to Krakow, and from Palo Alto to Istanbul. We had events everywhere, and we reached thousands and thousands of people more than we ever thought was possible for us, and that was a great thing. And in true Silicon Valley form, we realized that if we grow too fast, and if we try to reach as many people as possible too quickly without having the proper support, the proper foundation, we will collapse under our own weight. And so for last year, we went far and wide, and we reached so many people. This year, we decided on investing and going a little bit deeper and building the foundation that's necessary to support the growth of Z3, the movement, and also ultimately supporting a stronger and healthier relationship between diaspora Jewry and Israel. So to do that, we decided to invest in 3 programmatic initiatives. The first programmatic initiative that we're dealing with and we're investing is the Z3 Think Tank. Together with Natan Sharansky and Rachel Azaria, we brought together 10 incredible, brilliant speakers and thinkers and doers to help us develop and think and create the new paradigm and the new framework. Think about how we talk about and how do we deal with the relationship between diaspora Jewry and Israel. And through this exercise and the knowledge that we're gaining through it, we're going to create curricula and programming, and it's going to inform our work from here on out. And the good thing is that the think tank participants are here today. They're our speakers, so we'll all get to enjoy their brilliance. The second area in which we're investing is the Z3 Leadership Lab. And together with our partners at Spurtis, Karen Freeman and Dean Bell, and our partners at the Center for Jewish People Education, Shlomi Ravid and Ezra Kapelowitz, we created a program to train our amazing colleagues in the field to bring Z3 to their own communities. So we have here today representatives from 15 different JCCs who are going to learn how it's done, and then together we will help spread it through the continent. And lastly, this conference, it's its 7th year, which is unbelievable. And over the years, it's become mamash, the watering hole for anything that's related to this topic, Jewish peoplehood, Zionism, and so many initiatives and coalitions and programs and partnerships were born here. And so our goal is to continue in having this event every year here while helping others have their own events in their communities so we can continue to deepen these partnerships and create more opportunities for folks to make the change we want to see. And so these 3 elements are fundamentally important for Z3 here, and that we're able to create the change that we're going to see. Because of the 4 shocks that Zack was talking about, in order for that to happen, we have to start working and creating some depth to our work so we can grow wide and far as effectively as possible. So those are the 3 things we're working on, and I want to thank you all for joining us today again. We're very excited to see what happens with the scenario and how it unfolds. So without you, obviously this wouldn't have happened, so thank you for joining us. And before we jump in, I'd like to invite the Honorable Shlomi Kaufman, our Israeli Consul General to the Pacific Northwest, to share some words with us. Thank you.
Boker Tov, good morning. Good morning, Z3. Allow me to start by thanking so many dear friends in this wonderful community for your strong personal and professional friendship with me, with the consulate, and with the State of Israel in the past 5 years since I was posted here. This friendship and hospitality reflect your strong commitment to our only Jewish state and to history and future of the Jewish people. Each and one of you serves as a role model across the nation and in Israel to how responsible and visionary leadership act with clear vision, strategy, and direction. Zack, Amitai, Ronit, and your team, many good people, incredible people, thank you so much for what you're doing. And special thanks to all those who support you. Dear friends, the question for me is why we are actually here today. And the answer is very simple. It is because this conference is about us. All of us here, our present our future, our children, grandchildren, friends, and families here in Israel. It is because we have so much in common between us and so much that connects us. It is because of our values, beliefs, and our collective hope. We are here also because of the uncertainties and fears of internal and external dividing forces that seem to be growing and intensifying each year. There are many issues that can split us apart, but we must stay smart and diligent, as generations before us have done, to find ways to build on our past progress in order to secure the foundation for our future. We are here because we care for each other. Arevim ze leze. We all understand that our sacred foundation of arvut must remain solid. Our history is testing us again, and we all ask ourselves, how do we preserve this relationship for generations to come? How we preserve what is sacred for all of us? How do we conduct our understanding and our discourse in a manner that respects our realities and challenges? And in doing so, work together to make the right changes so that our common and solid grounds will remain in place. Let me share with you 3 major points that I think require special attention as factors that have significant impact on our discourse. Israel and the Middle East. The Middle East is changing in front of our eyes. The Abraham Accords have become the new global reality. It is a significant game changer. Iran's advancement towards achieving nuclear weapon is accelerating, and this is a game changer as well. It is a strategic goal to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapon capabilities. We must recognize and understand these new realities and their full impact, like potential nuclear proliferation. And we must understand that these realities are front and central in Israel's focus, despite the many other important and pressing issues. Second is Israel and the US. It is not a cliché that Israel has no better friend than the US, and the US has no better friend than Israel. Our countries are bound by a shared vision of freedom, democracy, and an innovative spirit. But there are forces out there that work hard to divide and weaken this unshakable alliance. The preservation of understanding that Israel is a strategic and vital partner which provides value and not a liability is so much more important now than ever before. Israel must remain a bipartisan issue, or better yet, non-partisan issue for the United States. We all must work together that future generations and civic leaders in communities, in unions, in churches, and other circles will fully grasp the importance of this relationship. And third, Israel and diaspora. Israel's future relations with diaspora and the preservation of our ties with the next generation is a cornerstone to Jewish community security and to Israel's national security. We must reaffirm our commitment to ensuring unity throughout our diverse community. There is a need to embrace the diversity that we witness today in our society and in our government. Israel for itself must find ways to ensure that Jewish people of all different backgrounds and beliefs will feel welcomed and at home, because Israel is the only home of the Jewish people. Debating and challenging are important. It is also taking place, as you know, between groups in Israel. By education of the next generation and responsible leadership by religious, civic leaders and educators is vital to securing our future. Friends, our destinies are interconnected. We're like one body. When we witness acts of anti-Semitism, we feel the pain collectively. And when Israel is under threat from Iran or Hamas, we know communities express the same collective worry and concern. This is our arvut, and we must preserve it. We must not allow the delegitimization of Israel and anti-Semitism to tear us apart with buzzwords like apartheid or argument about comparison with intersectionality. And we must stand for each other through thick and thin, openly and proudly. And on this last day of Hanukkah, tomorrow, almost last day of Hanukkah, and going into 2022, with all the challenges we have, I'm optimistic, especially looking back into this past year, in the past 2 years. The Abraham Accords give us hope. A new government in Israel gives us hope. And this gathering gives us all hope. Maybe we're living in times of miracles, and we can say, Nes Gadol haya po, v'nes Gadol haya sham. Toda rabba, and enjoy the conference. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Shlomi. It has been wonderful to have you in our community for the last 4 years. I know we're all going to miss you terribly at the end of your term this coming summer. You have become a part of our mishpacha, a part of our family. You've been with us during some really trying times, obviously since the rise of COVID, the rise of BDS, the rise of anti-Semitism. I don't want to say there's any correlation to you being here, Shlomi, and all these things. I just want to say, no, of course, you have been with us through these tough times, and we're going to miss you. So thank you for your service, really. All right, folks, it's now my pleasure to bring you to the heart of what we're doing today. We're going to play a game. And you're probably asking, what does that mean? What do you mean by a game? Well, I don't know if you heard Malcolm Gladwell on a podcast recently where he said, perhaps the best way to plan for uncertainties for the future may not be to make predictions or to make plans, but to play games. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to play a game. This is not going to be a conference like you've ever seen before. I promise you that. I actually have a little bit of tsuris about this. I have a little bit of angst. I see my colleagues on this side of the nodding, like, yeah, I'm used to like having a script, knowing how this goes. Our speakers who are sitting up, they're used to like, okay, what do you want me to say? What are our remarks? It's not going to be like anything like that. There's a lot of variables because you all are going to be active participants in this. And I'm just calling it out right now because this is an experiment. But we felt like for this moment, we needed to change the peoplehood conversation from being a reactionary one to being a proactive one. Because at the end of the day, that's what Zionism is, right? Perhaps that's one of Zionism's greatest legacies in the founding of the modern state of Israel, was taking our destiny into our own hands. The Jewish people saying we're no longer going to be victims of history, but we're going to be co-creators in writing history. That's what Zionism did. That's what we're going to be doing today with this peoplehood conversation. We're going to be having the conversation about, who knows, a scenario that could, God willing, never come, but you have to prepare. As they say, plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? Okay. That's totally as clear as mud, right? Got it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to focus on the screen for another 4 minutes. We have a short video we're going to show you. We've spent some time with experts in the field of game development. They're going to give you a sense of what's to come today, what this is all about, and then after that, I'm going to introduce for you our game master. So with that, please, to the screen.
So the term wargaming is in some places used interchangeably with the word simulating, which describes the crux of what is done in these games. When we simulate a situation in a research or a learning-oriented environment, which can be a conference, a workshop, a seminar, a roundtable discussion, we typically engage in an analytic game in which we step into someone else's shoes and play out a scenario that was carefully developed in advance. The someone that we simulate can be a country, for example, Israel and the United States. It can be an entity, for example, the UN, or Jewish Israelis and Jewish Americans. It can even be a person, for example, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. How would you define a successful simulation? You know, what would you tell the organizers of the Z3 conference?
It's a great question. Part I would turn back to you and to Udi and say, if if that passion, if the emotion is there, if you see people kind of at the edge of their seats, maybe even some people, some feelings get ruffled, maybe even some raised voices. To me, that's the sort of the gut check that during the scenario, things are going well.
Udi, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think, again, I completely agree with Scott. I'd add maybe two things in games that I found very useful. First of all, identifying new connections between actors and their preferences and how they might respond. Part of, I think, of the advantage of an effective game is broadening the way you think about a problem and seeing how different actors relate to it. And the second one is, and that may be even more relevant for the Z3, a good simulation is one that forces you to think what's your real preferences, and maybe in the context of Israeli diaspora, what's your identity, what are the various dimensions of it.
Thanks, Udi. I would perhaps also add that I think a benchmark to go by is if at the end of the simulation, the people around the table, there'll be people in person but also on Zoom, had I wouldn't say an awakening, but have something new, have come out with a new insight, a different way of seeing things. I think that could be a good benchmark for a successful game that maybe put your back against the wall and forced you to think of something that you couldn't think of without that game.
You know, I'll never forget in the late 2011, throughout 2012 and into 2013, when I was in the Obama administration working on Syria issues, there was a particular White House advisor, and she insisted on gaming out scenarios mostly around the use of chemical weapons. Just the very fact of someone pushing the system. There were a lot of other actors, different agencies, people skeptical. You know, is this really the most likely scenario? You know, she was spot on. By August of 2013, there was a major use of chemical weapons. There was you know, it may look different on the outside, but on the inside, working through those scenarios, working through the playbook of actions. I'll leave the names aside, but you know, that exercise, mostly throughout 2012 and early 2013, had a major positive impact on how we reacted.
Can you share a eureka moment that you had in those games where you sat and you saw a situation unfold and then you thought to yourself, wow, this is something that I couldn't have arrived at by myself through reading papers or through maybe side discussions with some experts?
So I'll make maybe two broad points, not maybe illustrated them with a story. One is I was amazed in at least two games with the role of emotions. We tend to think of these games as run by rational actors who have clear sets of preferences, but under the time pressure and constraints and the need to decide, sometimes an emotional part comes out, which of course makes you think what role does emotions have in general in decision making.
One point to Udi is that I completely agree with you about how people become emotional, and maybe to our audience that haven't witnessed these kind of simulations, it's unbelievable how there's kind of a suspension of disbelief. Yes. You step into the figure, you know, you really become part of the debate and emotions, and I completely agree with you. So thank you all for joining us, and from Washington and Tel Aviv, take care.
Okay, a little bit more clarity, right? It's becoming slowly a little bit clearer. Well, now I'm going to introduce to you our game master, Dr. James Fielder, who comes to us from Colorado State University with nearly 3 decades of experience in the field. He comes from the world of the military, academia, and in just recreational game design use. He is a renowned game designer across all industries, and we are just blessed that he has been with us, our partner today, as he's helped us create the game that we're going to be playing. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a few minutes as James takes us through session 0, where he's going to explain to us the rules of the day, what we can expect, and what's going to come out of this. With that, James, take it away.
All right. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Please feel free calling me James. Call me by my old military nickname, Pigeon. Probably not Dr. Fielder. That sounds kind of formal for today. And, I need my slides. I need my slides. That's all right. So I'll tell you a little story. Oh, there we go. I'll save the story for a second instead. So very happy to be here. Since most of you don't know me, and maybe you read my bio online, I'll throw up a few things for you. I'll say I'm humbled and happy to be here. And it's actually Rabbi Amitai who reached out to me. He was putting this together. He's actually fairly a natural at it. He's very good at putting this together, but he said, I need help. and I've read some of Pigeon's work. Maybe if I send him an email, it'll help me out. And I saw it, I said, gaming and free coffee? Absolutely, I'll be there. So very happy to be here. But the humbling part, although I game under entertainment context, consulting context, academic context, because of the content and because of your mission today, I'm representing myself as a faculty member of Colorado State University and no other. So I'm an academic today. And I have that picture there largely to prove that, yes, I was actually in the military and none of my students believe me. I've just adopted the civilian life very well. So I want to talk a little bit on why games work. In 1938, Hungarian cultural anthropologist Johann Huizinga said the temple and the tennis court are indistinguishable. This ties into what he called the magic circle. Victor Turner called liminality. Modern game designers such as Peter Perlin and Ed McGrady call synthetic experience, and the realm of virtual reality presence, or when you actually inject your identity inside of a screen. So what does he mean by the temple and the tennis court? A well-played game is a sanctified space, like going to the temple. It might sound shocking to say that, but when you cross into that football pitch, you sit down at the gaming table, you hear the sound of cards, you're ready for the social aspect. Once you've crossed that line, you've crossed an liminal state where everything inside the magic circle is real. Everything you feel in there is real. The risks, the anger, the stress, the triumphs, the wins, you remember that. That's why people can remember a well-played game 30 or 40 years old, and they can't remember what they had for breakfast the day before. Now for today, I also want to top into role-playing games, the concept of symbolic correspondence. This actually goes into older religious practices, which have carried over into the 21st century, of when the participant in a ritual or rite of passage would wear the mask of an animal or the mask of a spirit, or they drape themselves in a skin or some sort of costume. Per anthropology and modern ludology, they were not pretending to be the spirit at that point. They were not pretending to be the animal. They became it. They came to embody it. And it's very powerful psychologically. So those who participate in that ritual, they come out transformed. Now, a modern cynic might say, this is the 21st century. We don't do that. That's, wait for it, child's play. I'd say, oh no, sir. You put on that suit to go to work, you're putting on a costume, symbolic correspondence. Military, I put on my uniform, embodying a military officer, symbolic correspondence. Today, inside this space, symbolic correspondence. And I'll have more to say about that in a second with session 0. Ultimately, what games do, you work together in a stressful environment, and we have a little bit of stress today. Don't worry, it's not like a hardcore war game like my students are playing right now, where they're fighting off a robot apocalypse back at CSU. It is still, you're working together with challenging issues. Think of it, not war, a challenge. You get to speak. You get to have agency. Like I have contributed to this in some way, and I've seen something come out of it. And even though many of you have known each other before, you come out more cohesive. It helps build community. In fact, one of my hopes is when you're done here, the discussion doesn't end in the room. It carries over to the lunch table. It carries over into meetings next week, and it stays part of the discourse in this JCC. Ultimately, games are rituals. Like going to temple, games are rituals. Inside that, everything becomes real to the participants. That one picture at the bottom, I love that. That comes from Stranger Things, but it captures a very primal moment. When people win inside of a game, they're shaking their fists, they're shouting, they're jumping up. It taps into a primal moment that we have overcome something, and it felt like we actually did it. We overcame a real event, even though it was totally fantasy. But to them in the mind, it's real. Now, for anyone who still says it's child's play, it's like, oh, is this like playing Monopoly or something? I'd say, no, this isn't like playing Monopoly. After all, it's a terrible game. The only strategy in Monopoly is to roll a 7 consistently. Rather, you could be children in Israel learning about the history of Israel through a game, an immersive educational experience. Or You could be modern emergency responders who are practicing what they're going to do during an actual fire or a police event or a chemical spill, where I'm glad Malcolm Gladwell said it because I love saying the same thing. The first time you learn to react to a crisis should not be an actual crisis. With that, today what you're going to have is a narrative scenario exercise. Perfect information with a primary mechanic, a time constraint. You only have an hour and 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time. Perfect information, you have everything you need. There's no gotchas, no wool over the eyes, no surprises. So everything that's in this scenario is presented to you. So there will be no sudden injects that'll suddenly change the scenario. The stress really comes from the time and nothing else. There will be emotional content though. Some of these issues are, really hit close to home to folks. Now this ties into academic freedom and non-attribution and the gaming concept of bleed. Yes, have those conversations. Please do. That's where the magic happens, overcoming the obstacles. But when you walk back out of the circle, you leave the negative emotions behind and take what you learned and the cohesion with you outside of the circle. Next, a reminder, this is cooperative. You're not fighting other teams, not fighting each other. You're fighting this scenario. Actually, fighting is a strong word. We're using the term war game kind of loosely here. But again, it's a challenge. There is no war. There's no conflict in the sense of like someone hitting somebody else. But it is still challenging scenarios that you need to work through. Returning to symbolic correspondence. Modern times, most of it, you'll think about people playing a character in a role-playing game. Like they're pretending to be someone else. They're embodying another persona. Here, you don't have to pretend you're anyone else. Everyone on the stage, they're playing their expertise. They are themselves. The same applies to you. So you get to be you, or I could say more of you. With that, since I want to see you contribute, I want to see you become part of the narrative and give part of yourself inside the magic circle, I please encourage you to stay within your rooms and participate in this scenario. Get out of it what you put into it. And in particular, this is not child's play today. What you talk about could actually become a real future. Now, this is a part where I've helped Amitai write up the scenario and structure it, but Zack will actually be the face of the scenario. So now we'll turn over to Zack Bodner.
Thank you, Pigeon. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Pigeon. He's going to be back here behind the scenes, keeping track, writing, taking notes, consolidating it all together, putting out a report at the end of this. So thank you for all your help with this, Pigeon. Really appreciate it. All right. So we're ready to start our game. It's going to have 3 parts. First part is right now, opening plenary, where you're going to have 6 speakers up on the stage. Second part is the breakout sessions, where we're going to go off of this main scenario, and there's going to be 6 different tangential scenarios that each room, each of you have pre-signed up for one, you're going to work through, and then we're going to come back in the closing plenary and kind of digest it, bring it all together, and report out. Okay? Makes sense? All right, so we're going to spend the next 50 minutes or so engaging in the big scenario, so I want to bring out our speakers, our guests today. Please help me welcome the following 6 leaders in their field, gurus on Israel diaspora relations. First, representing the Next Gen Funding Coalition team, Andre Spokoiny. Come on out, Andres. Representing the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and the Israeli government team, Rachel Azaria. Representing our media team, we have Ben-Dror Yemini. Representing the Israeli NGO team, we have Gal Gabay. Representing Kahal, the home of the Jewish community team, we have Dr. Bethamie Horowitz. And finally, representing our Just Jewish Rabbis team, JJR, we have Rabbi Shai held. Come on out, guys. Everybody, please. There you go. Oh. Let's give them a round of applause again. They didn't hear it. They were backstage schmoozing. Okay. All right. Welcome, welcome. I know some of you are here jet-lagged or otherwise, so thank you for all being here, putting up with whatever quarantine you have to do going back home, but it's just great to have you all here. So, you ready for our scenario? You all ready? Here it is. Take a deep breath. And as Pigeon said, try to get into the emotions of this. Here we go. The year is 2025. Things between Israeli and American Jews are decidedly worse than ever before. The rupture between our communities is palpable. American Jews, reflective of American society at large, are polarized like never before. From both sides of the aisle, there's a growing call for disengagement from Israel, both from a conservative, America First isolationist perspective on the right, and from a very progressive place on the left, with a majority of young Jews demanding a demilitarized approach to America's role in the world, starting with Israel. Meanwhile, in Israel, things are not looking great either. Israelis are shifting their priorities. They're distancing from liberal democratic values as they need to deal more definitively with their own security challenges from Iran and their proxies. Israel's also finding more allies in the Middle East, so they're not seeing the American relationship as central as before. And they're starting to mimic the way their Middle Eastern allies are dealing with their own minority populations. Tensions are as high as they have ever been.
As extreme voices take over public discourse in the U.S., a new generation of communal leaders shift away from Israel. Meanwhile, Israel, faced with domestic challenges and shifting political priorities, becomes more militant and estranged from the American Jewish community. Is this really inevitable? Can we still change course? What can we do today to ensure a better tomorrow?
Okay, tense yet? Because it's so real, right? You can feel like it's just there. All right, well, here's the kicker. Now we're at the very moment. It's the eve of Pesach, 2025. Days after the conclusion of Operation Shushan, a military offensive started on Purim, in which Israel quashed a coordinated attack on several fronts by Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, and other Iranian proxies. While the casualties on the Israeli side are limited, the Palestinians suffered substantial losses. Thousands are displaced. As part of the growing distancing from Israel, Goshen, a next-gen Jewish collective, publishes an insert to the Haggadah in which they compare Israel to the Egyptian oppressive slave masters and Zionism to the golden calf of our time. Across platforms and organizations, throughout social media, many endorse and adopt this insert. An online campaign catapults this initiative, and it begins trending across platforms with frustrating hashtags like #LetMyPeopleGo and #EvenTheJewsKnow. Demonstrations across the country ensue. So, Andres, how does this land on you?
So I think it's this scenario is an acceleration of things that we're seeing already. And I think that every trend, the trend of disengagement from Israel or of sort of polarization, generates a counter trend. So we're going to see, I think if this scenario happens, we're going to see in the philanthropic community, which is the one that I represent, a much bigger polarization between the people that will support this Goshen group and those that will consider completely outside the pale. And I think that that's going to contribute to a sorting of the community. The community will start to get coalesced around these different trends, and the contact between these two poles are going to be less and less. I think that we're going to see that breakdown not only in the community at large, but funders and foundations are going to start seeing it in their own families. We saw it during the last Gaza war, that one generation wanted to do something and the other generation wanted to do something completely different. So I think this is going to be much more acute in that sense. I also think that in this scenario, one thing that this doesn't mention, but I think is going to happen, the impact of major mega donors is going to be critical. People will want to tip the scale one way or the other with enormous influxes of cash and of political influence. And I think that it's going to be very important for funders to realize today that we're in 2021, that we need to prepare for a scenario like that. The question with the scenario is not whether it's going to happen or not. That's irrelevant. The question is whether it's plausible. Can this scenario happen? And the truth is it can. Yeah. When you look at it, it can happen. So if it can happen, funders, foundations need to ask themselves, what can we do today towards that? And I think that what we can do today is, of course, things like C3 that strengthen the bridge building between Israel and diaspora Jews, and see the bridge building as a concentric circle thing. There's bridge building inside each foundation, bridge building inside the Jewish American Jewish community, and in the outer circle, Jewish peoplehood in general, American Israel, etc. So I think that taking this scenario seriously and starting to develop strategies to limit the polarization, to create dialogue between generations, to create dialogues between communities is going to be critical.
Awesome. This is why I love working with you, Andres. You get right down to tachlis. Like, how are we going to deal with this? Rachel, you represent the Israeli government. How does the Israeli government react to this scenario?
So first of all, I'd like to give a little bit of what's going on in Israel. Probably we're done with the funerals. We're probably trying to, Shiva. Everyone's licking the wounds after the small war. Kids are finally going back to school. Everyone's trying to go back into the normal pace, and suddenly this kind of hits us. We're probably surprised, even though we all know stuff like that could happen. And I would imagine, if I'm trying to represent the Israeli government, that the Minister of Diaspora Affairs would probably realize that he or she has two frontiers. One frontier is the frontier that we're discussing. The other one is within the government or within Israeli politics. This will be a huge opportunity for the right wing and the extreme right wing in Israel to say, we always told you that the American Jewish community was never loyal. We knew years ago that we should put more of our invest more in the evangelicals, invest more in other communities. They aren't loyal. And then the first thing that the minister will have to do is work within the Israeli government to make sure that they're backing him up, that he can go and do what has to be done. And the second challenge is, how do you work, obviously, with this group in the United States? Because it's a viral situation, so you can't do anything up front, because anything you do will just, feed the wave and make it even larger. You can't talk to them directly. The way I think that could be taken care of is probably by letting them understand that what they're doing, that kind of pressure won't push Israel in any way to negotiations or to peace in the Middle East. It will just strengthen the right wing, strengthen the people that oppose, because every country in the world, like every human, we don't usually deal well with very strong pressure, definitely not when we're licking our wounds.
Okay. And of course, this is going to play really well in the media, because as they say, if it bleeds, it leads. Ben-Dror, you represent the media. How's this going to play out?
Okay.
I think you guys, your mics work. The mics work. It was just Andres that was having an issue.
Okay.
Don't take it personally. All right, Ben-Dror, how does the media deal with
it?
It
gives you a better atmosphere.
Oh, I see. I know, exactly.
It's okay. I will manage. Anyway, my name is Ben-Dror Yemini, and why I'm saying that my name is Ben-Dror Yemini, because those of you who do not know Hebrew, Ben-Dror is the son of the freedom. Why I was called Ben-Dror? Because I was born in Erev Pesach, in the eve of when we are saying the Haggadah. So I'm the son of the freedom. So I take it personally.
Yeah.
I take it personally. Yeah. No, I'm not. Maybe I'm in the right side. I'm not sure that I'm in the right. Now, it's interesting because I'm going to write as a journalist in 2025. I'm going to write an article, and in my article, I will tell you a story. You, American Jews, non-Jews, whoever wants to open his eyes. And in my article, I will say a short story about a state that maybe imagined that the people are under any kind of danger. And the state decided to attack the jihadists. The jihadists were concentrated in a place. You can call it Gaza, you can call it any other place, in order to uproot them. Because they are endangering not only the state, but many other parts in the world. And they did. And they did. And they left a huge destruction. And now I'm giving the real answer because it's not a game. It's real, what I'm saying. They destroyed 65% of the buildings in one city, and in the other one, 70% of the buildings of the city. It was terrible. Nobody even knows how many people were killed. Nobody knows. What I can tell you is that from the side of the state that attacked, that bombarded, not even one soldier was killed. Now, you could expect a huge protest. How come that you are doing such, maybe you might call it, crimes war, and so on? No, there was not any protest. And you know who is the state? The state is the United States. And they did it in Mosul in 2017. And it's not my imagination, it's exactly what they did. Now I'm asking you in my article in 2025, I mean, you are trying to teach us a lesson and to tell us how to behave? You came all the way, thousands of miles, in order to uproot someone who really did not endanger you. And you are telling us, with your values, not to defeat the global jihad that is in our front, that is telling publicly, they do not even hide it, we want to kill not only all the Israelis. Just listen, but you don't listen. And I'm telling it to you. You don't listen. They say, what they say is, we have to kill all the Jews. So you are going to tell us that you are going to boycott us and so on, and to tell us not to do, and you are going to disconnect us from you, the two communities? And I'm going to ask you, is it moral to do what you are doing? One last sentence. Let me tell you something. As more as you are against Israel, anti-Semitism is going to go up. You're not going to lessen the disease. You're going to worsen the disease. Thank you.
Right. So what you're highlighting, Ben-Dror, is the hypocrisy of the American Jewish community. We feel like we can live our lives one way and tell you in Israel to live your lives a different way. But maybe this scenario is so over the top that the American Jewish community has lost all patience. I'm going to skip you. I'm going to come back to you for a second, Gal. I want to go to Bethamie, who represents the American Jewish community. And what is the American Jewish community's response when they start to read the media, when they see this, and how are you going to help keep them together, biyachad, one people, am echad, in spite of this terrible rift that's happening, Bethamie?
It's the American Jews are part of America, so Americans are split, and Jews are also split on these issues. And the other thing I want to say before I sort of go about what should happen next is that some of the trends we're seeing among American Jews, it's not always been, you know, when I was growing up, it was love and loyalty to Israel. That was the religion of American Jews. It was one of the main pillars. Love of Israel and remember the Holocaust. Those were the two things. And that's changed a lot. I don't mean that they don't matter at all, but the sort of unity of American Jews around those things has been changing, and particularly around Israel. It's not related to the politics in a certain way. If you think about when I was growing up, if you were going to hear about Israel, you heard about it in synagogue from your rabbi. The coverage, you know, of newspapers was limited. You didn't have access to Haaretz or Ma'ariv or anything else. So the media climate is so different now. And people can have direct access to Israeli media and learn or not learn. So it's created a Jewish community that has, instead of being unified and mobilized in one way around Israel, that everybody joined in and went out to mass marches and whatever, that now it's sort of more direct engagement, and people choose the ways they want to give. I can give to New Israel Fund and not give to anything on the West Bank, or I can support, you know, some yeshiva if I want to, and not give to liberal Judaism. So you can pick and choose how you want to connect to Israel, and that trend has been going on and continues to go on. So the Jewish community can't rule what individuals are doing. It's not like UJA, which used to have the framework that it directed the traffic. It doesn't do that anymore. And the other thing that's changed among American Jews is that in this climate of sort of, when I started off by saying American Jews, like Americans, are split. And so there are different positionings about different matters relating to peace and security and to the possibilities of any movement out of ongoing conflict. Are there ways to move towards peace? However naive that sometimes gets to be called. I mean, the fact is that there are a range of views and a lot of hopes and fears that are underlying those views. And so recently, I'd say in the past 20 years, since 2000, since the first Intifada, since post-Oslo, in the Netanyahu period, I mean, there are all sorts of correlates of what layered up. The outcome has been that we now see the emergence of critical engagement with Israel. And that means that it's considered legitimate to deviate from the positions of the Israeli government as an American Jew, as an American Jewish organization. Until 2000, it was considered a red line for any Jewish organization to come out with a different viewpoint than the Israeli government in public. There certainly were differences of view behind the, behind stage, but I don't know how widespread, but they certainly never voiced them in public.
Right.
And now, we have seen the emergence of different organizations that support different positionings. Right. That doesn't argue for how can we be one. So I think the American Jewish community in this scenario, I'm worried about, on the one hand, all the people I know and love in Israel and keeping Israel safe. That remains a really important thing. On the other hand, this is a trend we're seeing, especially among young people, is how much of Judaism and American Judaism and Jewishness, which is so positive and well-organized and expressive in so many different ways, how much is that bearing every move that Israel makes or is stuff that's made to happen to Israel? I mean, when Israel's attacked, I think American Jewry joins up. But when there's room for other choices to be made, I think there's more I started off by saying tolerance, but there's a widening sort of possibility that American Jews are going to have opinions about what might be done to move things in some other way. Doesn't mean they're trying to speak to the elected government of Israel. That's clearly very, very different. That's right. But I think American Jews have different realms of action. And the other thing I'll say is, years and years ago when UJA was kind of organizing itself, and there were Republicans at that time. We always think of American Jews as being mostly Democratic, although and that the emergence of Republican Jews is something more recent. It's not. At a certain point, when the Jewish Democrats were organizing and the Jewish Republicans were organizing, they were united enough to be able to have a meeting and say, Max Fisher, the Fisher body, Max Fisher said, I'm going to make sure that I'm strong in the Republican leadership because I want a Jewish voice there. And the Democrats, too, had this sense of parceling it out so that strategically they could be in the right place at the right time to articulate in, let's say in this case, the Democratic and Republican domains, that they could articulate a position that would be something that responded to Jewish needs, which were highly tied to Israel.
Right, and you mentioned that in the old days, the federations, the UJA, but also the rabbis had the pulpit to explain how people should think about these things.
Yeah.
Shai, you represent the rabbis, but a non-denominational, forward-looking, kind of the cutting edge. How are the rabbis responding in this moment?
Well, I think that we would start not actually speaking from a pulpit, but actually through a series of brutally honest, no pussyfooting around conversations with American Jewish leaders and Israeli Jewish leaders. For example, one of the things that I would urge Israeli leaders to take seriously, something that I think is totally foreign to their experience, is what it means for young American Jews to be growing up in a thoroughly Protestant culture, in which religion is an affair of the individual. and the sense of group loyalty, the sense of, Jews are family, is actually an enormously hard sell for a lot of young American Jews because it is not culturally reinforced at all. I think somehow, if Israeli leaders want to have meaningful conversations with that younger generation of American Jews, they have to find a way to understand the social forces that pull American Jews away from some of that kind of ethnic, communal, familial identity. I would also say, and some of what I'm going to say I have to say, one of the reasons I look for these conversations in private is because these will not be popular things to say. But one of the things that I would say to a lot of the mainstream American Jewish leadership is you need a massive reality check about how much the political spectrum has shifted left among a younger generation of Jews. I regularly teach members of the AIPAC board who somehow still think that J Street represents the left. If you are aware in any way of the politics of a generation of Jews under the age of 30, J Street is the middle, right? J Street is still very much Zionism. So you just have to find a way to readjust your calculation of what the American Jewish political spectrum looks like. Even more unpopularly, I would urge American Jewish leaders and Israeli Jewish leaders, especially those on the right, to adopt, and I realize the irony of appealing to him right now, to adopt the spirit of Rav Kook in the sense of finding the spark of holiness even in opinions and positions with which you strongly and perhaps even vehemently disagree. The fact is that many young Jews, not all, I don't mean to, representing the naive faction of the American Jewish community here, but many young American Jews are engaged in the activism they're engaged in because they believe that is what Torah requires of them. And the fact that they chose to create a Haggadah supplement rather than an ad in the New York Times is actually quite significant. Mm-hmm. So I think what you have to do is introduce a conversation about greater nuance and empathy without saying, and you're all self-hating, and you're all enemies of the Jewish state and the Jewish people. That is counterproductive, but more importantly, it's not true. It's actually just simply not an accurate description of many of those people. And then I would want to say something to American Jews, Jewish leaders, and Israeli Jewish leaders really at the same time, which is totally obvious to me, and yet I feel like it needs to be said. American Jews, forget about politics for a minute, forget about Israeli state, forget about all of that for a second. American Jews cannot write off Israeli Jews. It is half of the Jewish people. Israeli Jews cannot write off American Jews. It is half of the Jewish people. To the extent that you, the leadership, believes in something called Am Yisrael, you have to do better than succumb to your own worst rhetoric. You have to do better than that. It is simply what it means to be a people. I would also, I guess the last two very quick things, Zack, that I just want to add is, I think that Israeli Jewish leaders need to dramatically turn down the bluster on we'll be fine without American Jews. To the extent that you value AIPAC's impact on Congress, to the extent that you value Iron Dome, you cannot get up and say we write off American Jews lazazelitam. You cannot do that. You're kidding yourselves, and it is ultimately self-destructive. The last thing I would say that is really, I think, an umbrella is I think this about most things, to be honest, for better or for worse. What is really needed here is a deeper investment in empathy. And I've already given a couple examples of that, but I want to end with one last one. What I would say, and what I do say, honestly, in my life working with young American Jews, is you will never have an ounce of impact on Israelis, nor should you, unless and until you understand what the Second Intifada and the disengagement did to the Israeli psyche. Yes. If you refuse to understand that, you will never make any contribution, because nobody listens to anyone who doesn't understand their own fears. Mm-hmm. Nobody listens, right? If you come to me and tell me something about my personal life and you adamantly refuse to understand what I'm afraid of, I will not be interested in what you have to say. So at the end of the day, At the end of the day, critique Israeli policy all you want. Write whatever Haggadah supplement you damn want. It's fine. But understand that you have to make Israelis feel that you understand why they are nervous, why they are wary, and why they are distrustful. Without that, you will be an irrelevant voice in this conversation.
Excellent.
Wow.
Shai, yes. You nailed it. I want to pick up on this thread of empathy.
I'll just say that I would ask Shai to write the column. That I said that we'll need leaders to write the column. You'll be the first.
I'll be right next to Ben-Dror's column.
No, but you'll be in the New York Times, Ben-Dror.
Well, all of you are going to be writing after this experience,
okay,
right?
Yeah, we're preparing.
All right, well, let me pick up on this. I want to come back to Gal. Gal hasn't had a chance.
Just one remark. Part of the problem.
I've already lost control. See, I knew this was going to happen.
The Israelis, it was fast.
You can't control Israelis on the panel.
No,
Come on.
exactly.
I'm glad that we have Brett Stevens here, but I'm not sure that the New York Times will publish my article.
Yeah.
That's all.
They will. They will. So I want to pick up on this thread of Rahmanis, of empathy, of nuance, and I want to come to you, Gal, because I think what the Israeli NGO community is doing these days is something spectacular in the realm of Jewish peoplehood. They're expanding the conversation about spiritual Judaism outside of either Haredi or Chiloni, right? And I would imagine that after a scenario like this, the Israeli NGOs are going into overtime, right? And so what do the Israeli NGOs want to say to our American young liberal Jewish community that's beating up on them? How do the Israeli NGOs respond to this moment?
First, we'll try to explain how Israel is complicated. And I'll try. I'm allowed to read, please?
Sure. Yes.
I'm not articulate like the others.
Not true.
I'm sorry.
Not true.
But in Hebrew,
Yeah, no, we're sure.
it's a knockout. So it's a real complicated, by definition, society. Israel is an interesting place indeed. Everyone speaks Hebrew but doesn't understand each other. It feels like Babylon. Yeah. It consists of Jews from 80, I say, countries around the world, and an Arab minority itself also divided and split. The feeling is of tribes playing a zero-sum game. If God forbid they understand the other tribe, they will lose the absolute justice that gives the legitimacy to fight an all-out war against others. It's hard to live like that. Religious, secularist, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, rich, poor, Arabs, Jews, endless divisions. Shai once said something wonderful, that I'm using it. Do not let the dispute stop the learning, meaning studying together. With us, it feels like sometimes we have stopped learning and remained only with the dispute. I'm a journalist, and I have learned one thing in my 30 years of work. People need to be understood more urgently than they need to be right. This is how I connect to what you said. And the fear of avoidance of listening and understanding and giving space to the experience and narrative of a different scale of values leaves too many people feeling incomprehensible and unaccounted for. That's a lot of explosive frustration in one place. As for relations with diaspora Jewry, with you, American Jewry, there are two main approaches which are at battle. what Israeli Jews in both approaches have in common is that they all live with what Israeli Jews in both all live with an anomaly. Israeli Jews are majority in their land and a sovereign in their state, but carry the consciousness of minority. It's an anomaly. The consciousness of survival. Such a way of feeling erodes values because it is a supposed war of existence. When you are majority with the conscious of minority, you do not learn to be the responsible adult whose duty is to protect the weak and the minority, but to defend against them, even to fight them. This is a situation which there is a perceptual gap between Jews living in a minority life, in exile, and therefore tend to identify with minorities and promote progress values, and Israelis who feels dread from these values that are perceived as weak and dangerous. The more dominant group in Israel sees the criticism of Jews of the United States as an existential threat and even as a betrayal.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause there, Gal, because that's bringing us back to where I want to go back around the horn. Thank you for those comments. Andres is over here writing furiously. I know he has something he wants to say in response.
No, I think that there's a number of things here. First of all, what Shai was saying about understanding how American Jews think is very important, and I think that's something that we're seeing today that we have to actually try to change, is that American Jews are superimposing over Israel American conflicts. Like we're seeing, for example, talking about the Palestinian problem as if it was the fight for racial justice in the US, and it's not. Every country has the right to be messed up in its own way, right? And America is messed up in its own way, and Israel has its own conflict. So I think that the work that, if I'm representing here the philanthropic community, I think that educating the Jewish community about the uniqueness of each of these two problems that are equally serious, right? But they're unique and they're problematic in their own way. I think that the fragmented nature of the community is unavoidable. I think that the days that you were describing about the time when we gave our money to the federations and we let them decide what were the needs is not happening. It's not coming back. Mm-hmm. So I think that providing alternatives for critical engagement is critical. It's very important because people are not going to outsource their decision making to somebody else. They want to decide and make their own impact. And this is not just a question of age. It's true that young funders, young philanthropists do that much more intensely, but older funders are thinking in exactly the same way. They want to have their own thing. So we need to understand, per Shai's point, that critical engagement is not the problem. Apathy is the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you engage critically, you care. And we are still in a place, the last Pew report showed that 84% of Jews see Israel as a critical part of their identity. So we're not in a doomsday scenario. I mean, we have what to build with. But we have to not be afraid of that critical engagement, embrace it, and make sure that we understand how people engage today. And the last point I want to make is, we're talking here about articles in the New York Times, right? And articles in the New York Times are great, but that's not how influence happens today. So not in vain, in the scenario, this goes viral on social media.
Right.
Right. So we're fighting. If we decide we have to fight this, we're fighting it with articles in the New York Times, but that's not where the fight is taking place.
Right.
So one of the thing I would say, I would tell philanthropists, and I tell them today already, is you need to understand not what the messaging is. We're good at messaging. You need to understand how influence happens in this new media universe.
Right. How does influence happen?
I want to say something.
Go ahead, go.
I want to add that I think that the diaspora Jewry is critical at those times. I belong to the second group, and I believe that without that critics, we'll lose the essence of Judaism. יגיד לך אדם מה טוב, מה אלוהים רוצה ממך, עשות משפט צדק, אהבת חסד, הצנע לכת עם אלוהיך. The essence of Judaism is humanity.
Right. Right.
Universal humanity. Without universal humanity, there wasn't Hasidei Olam.
That's right.
So we need you. We need that critic.
So we're in a moment where that has all been lost. We all know that this is what Judaism is all about, right? The being a light unto the nations, bringing our unique gifts to the world to make the world a better place. And yet what the world is focused on right now is this offensive that Israel just went on to wipe out its own military threat. And now the American Jewish community is leading the fight in critiquing Israel, right? So, and part of this is the media, like we talked about, Ben-Dror. Part of it is the New York Times, but not only. I just came from the Banksy exhibit in San Francisco yesterday, where it's this absolutely incredible exhibit of Banksy's artwork. And of course, there's this one section where he does this whole thing on Palestine, right? And I'm like, it hits you in the gut, because you realize that's going to impact a lot more of these progressive young San Franciscans than maybe an article in the New York Times. So how do we address that from a media perspective, Dror?
Okay, first of all, we have a kind of a gap of information. When I'm speaking about gap of information, I mean, what you see from Israel is not what you see from the United States. One, I mean, and it was mentioned, oh, I am exposed now to the Haaretz, and then I know a bit better. No, if you are exposed to Haaretz, it's maybe part of the problem and not part of the solution. That's one. That's one. And second, when we are saying the Jews of Israel and the Jews of the United States, of the diaspora, like if there is a kind of rift between us, no, it's not the case. It's not the case. I mean, I guess so many of you know Israel, and you know that we have this kind of range of views, just almost, not the same, almost like what you have. I mean, we have people who support the left, people who support the right, people in the center. We have a range of views. I mean, and many times it's a kind of strange. I mean, it's not that we need you, the diaspora, to tell us to behave in a better way. No. I mean, something like 70% of the Israeli media is critical to the government.
We do need it. We don't need them to be critical.
So, no, the question is not, I'm just telling you now the facts. And the facts are that we are doing it all the time.
Right.
I mean, me, as a Zionist, and I'm a devoted Zionist, I have a lot of criticism against my government. And we don't need you to tell us about Sheikh Jarrah, okay? For example, it's just a symbol of something that, I mean, because we criticize our government. I criticize my government. I don't like what they are doing there. But many times, when it's coming from some people, not all of people, from outside, it sounds like, oh, you're not with us. Which sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But we have to understand that Israel is a democracy. Don't forget it. I know that so many people speaking about the end of democracy. Not at all. Israel is a democracy. We have our self-criticism. We have a free press. We do it all. We do it. You have to always to remember it. But sometimes, and I see it because I give so many lectures to young students, and we are speaking about this generation that we have to speak about. The new generation that is distancing himself from Israel. You know what? They don't know. So many times they are brainwashed, and let's put it on the table. They are brainwashed with so many lies. I'm not speaking about views, but with so many lies against Israel. It's just amazing. It's just unbelievable how many lies they express when they don't know. Not because they are anti-Semites, not because they are anti-Zionist, because they don't know. And yes, somehow somehow, without any connection of being right-winger, left-winger, liberal, Democrat, conservative. We have to bridge the gap. We have to supply the right information, and then let's have the debate.
Right. We're not going to disagree on this one. We agree that a lot of the young generation doesn't have enough of the information. But who has the time to dive into something more than 140 characters? There are so many issues out there that everybody, not just young people, care so much more about that they're just going to catch the headline. That's why one of the number one questions I'm always asked, I'm sure you are too, is why doesn't Israel have better hasbara? Right? They try to blame it on the upper level, which is just an excuse at a certain level. But I want to come back to the Israeli government. I want to see how the Israeli government's going to react to this. So Rachel, take us from here.
Yeah, so I'd like to say something. I think that we heard very articulately the way Andres was talking, and also Bethamie and Shai, Rabbi Shai held, regarding the fact that being critical of Israel is showing that you care about Israel, that, you know, we're not doomed. It's not that people are apathic about it, but that they're critical. And I think that the question shouldn't be whether being critical is okay. I mean, fine, whatever. Maybe it isn't as easy for Israel, and Israel would be very happy that everyone would be, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago and just say everything is amazing and praise and whatever. But I think that one of the questions that we need to ask ourselves is about tikkun olam. And in Judaism, tikkun olam has never been, you know, pointing out what's wrong. It's about going and fixing it. And I think that both the Israeli government and the leaders of the American Jewish community, and, you know, you need to know how to engage with your younger crowd. I mean, that's part of the deal, is how do we work together to fix it? And I think that caring caring and then being very critical is okay, but that doesn't bring us to the next stage. And the way we should do the next stage, or what has to be done, at least by the Israeli government, is very much like what Shai was talking about, the empathy of the American Jewish community towards the Second Intifada and towards the disengagement. These are really issues that changed Israeli society and turned Israeli society into a much more right-wing society. Because, you know, we did what we were expected, it didn't work, whatever. And I think that the Israeli government has to be much more empathic towards what the changes that are happening in the American Jewish community, and not trying to explain that you're wrong, or trying to explain that you don't understand, or trying to explain that, you know, you need to do this and that because you're Jews. I think both sides have to be much more empathic, and then once we do that, we can try building together the next bridges. But these will be very, very different bridges than what we've seen till now and what we've expected. And here I'll come out of my character for a second and say that's what we're trying to do in this thinking group, to really try and look at the situation today and kind of disengage in the way we've been doing in the past. And is that okay? I see you're getting up.
Yeah.
Disengage.
No. Gotta beat you up.
No, you know, that's not. That was later. That's not. No. Try to disengage and try to start to, like, you know, disengage in the way we've been doing it in the past for 70 years or 80 years or 90 years, and try to think about the future in a different way, because the nations have changed, because not the nation or the groups have changed so dramatically. And yes, the first stage is, yes, tikkun olam, and with empathy, and by thinking how we can actually change the situation both in America and the United States.
Yes. 100% it's about empathy. I'm going to come back to you, Shai, real quick, and then we can come back, Andres, because this piece is resonating with me about whether criticism entails empathy or not. Are they two diametrically opposed things, or can you have empathy and have love and still be critical? I've always talked about the relationship between American Jewry and diaspora, and Israeli Jewry as being like husband and wife. You can fight, but you should fight behind closed doors. When you bring it out in public, it doesn't really help the relationship. And yet, we're in this moment where the scenario has created, it's out in public. We're arguing in the town square. So, malaso, what are we going to do now? What's the first step, Shai? Here's the question. What's the first step that you and your organization take to try and move this in the right direction after this scenario breaks down in 2025?
Well, so let me back into an answer for a second. I think, of course, you can criticize someone without having empathy for them. People do it all the time. We've all done it with people we don't like. You criticize people without having empathy for them. The question is, if you're criticizing them to sort of like demonstrate your own position, or whether you're actually trying to move the person you're criticizing. If the latter, criticism without empathy is very unlikely to be effective, which is why I began. I mean, it was very conscious on my part not to have the rabbis begin with pulpits. First of all, I don't think rabbis are pundits. I don't think that's what rabbis are for, right? I mean, they often function that way, but I don't think that that's the point. I actually thought that would be much more helpful is to have a conversation with leaders so that they can help set the tone for the kind of conversations that are necessary. That's much less glamorous, but I think much more important. So I would really see our job as facilitating how can we have a different kind of conversation than the one that we're all likely to have when the temperature is so hot. And to your point, Zack, one thing about that really struck me in what you just said about how we were told to have conversations behind closed doors. The problem is in the age of Twitter, I'm not sure there is such a thing as behind closed doors anymore.
No, there isn't.
Right? And that's for better and for worse. On the one hand, it's a disinfectant. All kinds of secrets that were kept secret are out in the open. On the other hand, it makes it very hard to have a family squabble. Right. Because everybody else is watching, listening, and egging you on. And that makes it much more painful and much more hostile. Right. By the way, I would just say one conversation that almost happened here as an American Jewish leader that I would want to hear is Gal's disagreement with Ben-Dror about whether you need American Jewish criticism. I think as an American rabbi, that's a conversation I would really want to hear.
Yeah. I think it reminds me of, I used to have a soccer coach that would say...
Israel, and I think about Judaism. It's two different points of view.
What do you, Gal, flesh that out. What do you mean by that? Ben-Dror,
I think something happened to the Judaism in Israel because of the combination with...
State and religion.
What?
State and religion.
Sovereignty, land, and religious. So it made lots of change about the essence of Judaism. Someone asked me to define Israel, and then I said, well, Israel is the only place the Jews are guilty. Why? Because we are the strong, we are the majority, and it's natural that we'll do things in conflict. But as I said before, if you don't, internalize that you are a majority and you are responsible, something wrong will happen with your Judaism, with the moral Judaism. We have a common goal to bring to the world humanity. This is our internal goal, mission, and this is what's important.
Okay, I'm just going to finish my story real quick, and then Ben-Dror, I'm going to have you respond, but I remember having a soccer coach who said, because he was yelling at me, the day you need to worry is the day I stop yelling. Because that's the day I stop caring. That's the day I stop investing. To Andres' point, it's the apathy that we need to worry about. The criticism, the yelling, the engaging is important because then it shows that we still care.
Yes.
We could talk about tactics. We could talk about how we do it. But Ben-Dror, your point is we don't need it. We don't need it. Israelis, we have enough internal self-criticism. We don't really need you from the outside in America wagging your fingers at us. We know our faults. We are very well capable of fixing our problems. Thank you for sitting outside here on your ivory tower in America and telling us how we're doing things terribly.
Okay, let me tell you something. It's not what I'm saying in my articles in Israel. Not at all. Because what I'm saying is that the American Jewry is a pillar of power for us, for Israel. We need you. Don't misunderstand me. We need you. But we need much more understanding. And with some parts of the community, yes, we do have. With some other parts of the community, no, we don't have.
But we abuse that understanding.
Now, I do understand. No, I don't disagree with you. Don't misunderstand me. I mean, Judaism is, of course, part of my identity. Yes, and I'm glad that you are here, because if you are here, Judaism is part of your identity. And for many of us out there, that they are not here, Judaism is, or that it's not part of their identity at all, or that they don't care, or that, I mean, people are speaking many times about universities. I mean, let's admit, 90% of the students that we are speaking about have no idea, not about the conflict, not where Israel is on the map.
Right.
We are speaking only about the 10% that care. And I'm glad that they do care, even if we disagree many times. But I'll tell you a story why I do care so much. My grandparents arrived to Israel 100 years ago. They arrived just like other people came from East Europe. They came from Yemen because they were persecuted. And so many times people do not understand the whole idea of the Zionist idea.
It's not all about security. It's not all about security. It's who we are.
Let me, please, Gal. So the point is that many times they do not understand, mainly American students, what does it mean, a nation state? We do not understand it, the whole idea. I mean, we can live freely with equal rights, and what is your problem with, for example, right of return of the... They do not understand. They do not understand that in that time, 100 years ago, people were looking for a shelter because they did not have a shelter, because they were persecuted.
Right. Okay.
And the moment that Israel will not be a Jewish state, it will not be a democratic state. It's going together. For me, a Jewish state and a democratic state, it's something that cannot be disconnected. It should be connected for our survival. And yes, we need you. But sometimes we need you to know the history, the realities, and what we are facing. And when I began what I said about what was the right of the United States to come all the way thousands of miles to uproot the global jihad from Mosul, and you tell us that we do not have the same kind of right, here we have a problem.
Okay.
And this kind of double standards, it's part of the enemy and not part of the solution.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have the unenviable task of trying to wrap this up. I want each of you to have a final word. Take 60 seconds. Bethamie, we're going to start with you. 60 seconds on your final word as we set up our attendees to go out there and become active participants in your breakout sessions. You're going to have a lot more time to share your thoughts. But Bethamie, let's start with you on final word. 60 seconds, please.
So this American Jewry is a really proud and strong community, which was not true 75 years ago, and was not true even 50 years ago in the way that it is today. And it's very interesting that you're making the point, Gal, about how Judaism might be different from Israelism. And I think that's where there's probably an opening for American Jews to be able to speak with authority about the kind of Judaism we have here, with its diversity. And so there's something there. I don't know where it's going, but it's not something we normally focus on. And so that's a way to sort of change the scenario. The other thing is, I don't think that rehashing the story of how Israel came to be founded and why it's necessary is going to speak to this generation of American Jews. I don't think they shouldn't know it. Of course they should. And many of them do. And I don't think the scenario of disaffected American Jews is because they don't know Jewish history. I do think that there are a lot of questions that remain outside of the pale of Jewish discourse in America, and having spaces where people can ask the hard questions and look stuff straight in the eye and say, I don't get it. We're in the reign of appearances right now. The world of appearances, where we're all putting stuff on media, where or at least media exists and it's a performative environment, is not good for education. And the one thing that American Jewry is very good at is creating spaces for educative conversations. It hasn't been done around Israel. Okay. It's mostly been, this kind of fight.
That's right.
And I think that's why, actually, you didn't pay me to say this, but Z3 and this format of having a space where things can be explored, even among the 12 of, or however many, what are we, 12 when it's the whole group?
Yeah.
It's been extraordinary because it's not like we're uninformed. We're expert visitors and expert knowers of one another's countries and realities. I don't think we are the ones that are normally the problem, but we've had areas where we've had to learn. And I think being able to get inside those details without it being a big public performance in the first place, even though that's what the scenario presents, is that there is a performative thing. Okay. I think we've got to find ways to create opportunities to...
Great spaces for the education and the conversation. Thank you, Bethamie. Final word from you, Gal. We're going to go this way and end on Shai.
A war that what?
Where do you need to go from here to take Israeli NGOs and make this productive?
I will put all my efforts in listening.
Listening.
Not a judging listening,
Yeah.
not an empathy listening, a passive listening, because we need to understand deeply the differences of חוויית החיים, experience of life, and then we can fight about what we want, how we want. And I think that Israel now, it needs, the Jews in Israel have to learn how to be a majority, a good majority, Rov Tov.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to understand the difference between the differences, ההבדל בין כברת ארץ לדמותה של ארץ.
A piece of land.
The piece of land and
the image of land?
The essence.
Not exactly.
The essence of
the land.
The
values of
the values of who we are. We have to understand that one cannot be with the other.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a safe space for real education, real conversation. We have listening. Ben-Dror, final word.
In many aspects, we in Israel have to learn a lot from the diverse, speaking about Judaism, which is highly important for me. I'm representing myself. Speaking about Judaism, I do prefer the American way. I do prefer this kind of diversity that we are having much more right now. There is an American influence on the Jewish life of Israel. Many synagogues, not enough, many synagogues are following the American way with that kind of, so we have a lot of what to learn. So sometimes we have to put aside the debates, and we have debates in Israel and in the United States, but we have, in that respect, we have a lot of, and I do remember myself after 12 years ago when I had a kind of tour between the Jewish different communities here in San Francisco it was, and I was really amazed. I was really amazed, and I liked it so much, so I published a 2-page article. We have what to learn from the American Jewry. We have to follow them. In that sense, we are under the rabbinate, which is forcing us to one way, which most of the Israelis, and you don't know it many times, don't like it. And just one last sentence. And so many Americans were furious about Israel because of the Mitveh HaKotel, the Kotel plan. Let me tell you, just in order to know, most of the Israelis, according to several polls, are supporting the Mitveh HaKotel, the Kotel plan, that enabled the conservatives and the reformists and women to pray in the Kotel. But you don't know it many times, but it was a problem of the government, not of the people of Israel. And the difference is huge.
Ben-Dror, thank you. Rachel.
Remember at the beginning I said that basically the government can't approach these people in this wave because it's on social media. And I want to go back to that and how we need to rethink the way we have these discussions. In Israel, I wrote a book on how to make social change, effective social change, because I realized that people go and demonstrate and they don't really realize how much power they have. And I feel that the same kind of thought we have to bring also here. It's not about saying how, Tikkun Olam isn't about saying how the world should be. That doesn't change the world in the right direction you want it to be. Tikkun Olam is about working sometimes with a lot of patience. Sometimes it will take 1 decade, maybe even 2, but knowing where you want to reach and working very, very seriously towards it. And I think that that's what we're missing in a lot of this discussion between the American Jewish community and Israel, because we're always about what's happening this moment. There's this wave. What do you do? How do we react? And then once we're done, so again, we have this discussion. I'll tell you one last story. I had someone from J Street in my office when I was as a member of the parliament, and it was right after Pesach. And he said, you're doing this and this and that and that and that. I told him, we just read in the Haggadah, שבכל דור ודור עומדים עלינו לכלותנו, right? And every generation there is some nation that comes against us. Whenever you approach Israel, like saying how horrible we are, that tune starts, humming in our head, and we shut down, and you can't say anything because we know there are always people that are coming against us, and we can't. And he said, he reads the Haggadah differently, and I said, but that's not the discussion now. The discussion is, how do you affect Israel so Israel will work in the values that you believe in? And I think the discussion that we in Israel have to do is, how do we work differently to affect the American Jewish community to engage in Israel, not only the younger generation, not only with criticism. I think that's the real tikkun olam, and I think the problem is that we always wait for these horrible situations, horrifying situations, and we don't always work in the long term, and that's what we're doing here on Z3, and that's what I really, really hope that we'll be successful in.
Okay, Rachel, thank you. Andres?
Yeah, one thought and two quick recommendations. The thought is that, let's not believe in myth. The fact that Jews never criticize Israel is a myth. There was an article in 1949 published by Ben-Zion Netanyahu, Bibi's father, in the New York Times, accusing Ben-Gurion of destroying the Zionist myth. The fight against the Oslo process from the ZOA was very public and very vicious. So this is not a new thing. So let's not think that everything was better in the past, because it wasn't. So it sounds different now, but it's not a new phenomenon. So let's not be that afraid of it. Two recommendations. I think that we need to have a conversation about power and powerlessness. I think that many of the things that we were hearing here was about Jews not really understanding how to live in a situation in which we have power. We have a self-consciousness of a people that is powerless. There were victims that were threatened all the time. And all of a sudden, we have power. And how do we do it? Even the Judaism, you talk about Gali, is a Judaism that was developed in a context of powerlessness. It's very easy to be a humanist when you don't have to run an army. Yeah. It's very easy to believe in social justice when you don't have to run a real economy.
When you're not responsible.
So I think that having a conversation with American Jews about, and with Israeli Jews altogether, about the notion of power and powerlessness is very important. It's probably the crux of what we need to deal with. And last but not least, in your capacity of, in your role of a government representative, I would say, let's abolish talking points. Because talking points are about telling people what
they should do,
what they should think, and what they should do.
Right.
Exactly. So I think that let's replace the talking points with the kind of deep conversations that Shai was talking about. That's going to be much better in terms of asbara, which is also a term that we should abolish.
And that's what we say.
Thank
Amen,
you.
Right?
Shai, final word, and then we're going to let you guys go to the next section.
Okay, so I want to say one more piece about empathy. I think one piece that the American Jewish community also badly needs to work on is understanding the generation gap among American Jews and what were the formative memories of Israel that people grow up with. The emotional relationship with Israel of someone who grew up with 1967 as their formative memory versus someone who grew up with the war in Lebanon and Sabra and Shatila as their formative memory is vast. And we have to find a way to have that conversation. We have not really had it. We spend most of our time yelling at each other instead of actually having that conversation.
Okay.
I would say also, this is something I think about all the time. I would be embarrassed to tell you how much I think about this. How much of our inability as an American Jewish community to have certain conversations is a function of a Jewish problem, and how much is about the fraying of America altogether? Right? How much is it just, I mean, it's not like non-Jews in America are having wonderful conversations about public policy either, right? So I don't know what that means, but I know that has to factor in somehow to reckon with where we are as American Jews in a larger context that has totally broken down in terms of its ability to have a discourse. Right. The last thing I will say, which I know that people in this room will hear in different ways, and that's probably how it should be, is something that I remember hearing the late Label Fine say, Leonard Fine, which is that the Jewish people have no greater interest than the pursuit and the implementation of Jewish values. We have no greater interest than pursuing our values. So let's have a conversation about what our values are.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all to these speakers. Thank you, Shai. You're gonna get a lot more of them. So here, you got a 15-minute break, and then we ask you to please go to your breakout rooms. It's on your badges, all right? Each of these incredible individuals are gonna be paired up with a partner, in many cases Israeli and American together, and then the other part of their partnership will be up here on the closing plenary. But head on out, take a quick break, and we'll see you in the next breakout session. Thank you all very much.